Responding to the environment in plants. In this presentation, I'll be looking at plant hormones, defense, phototropism, and then geotropism. So, what do we mean by uh, plant response to the environment? What we need to know is that plants, just like any other organism, are capable of responding to changes within their environment. They are able to communicate among themselves. They are able to respond to stimuli such as water, whether it is available or not, rainfall, wind, sunlight, gravity, chemicals, and even touch. So here is a depiction of plant response to the availability of food via touch. That is through touch. So the plant is able to know that there is something on it, is able to sense the organism, and is able to respond accordingly. There are different ways plants respond to the environment when they are under attack. Let's say insect attack. For example, a larvae attacking it. Plants are able to detect the changes within the environment so that they can respond accordingly, either by releasing special chemicals to combat it. There are other simple but natural ways by which plants respond to stimuli. In this curriculum, we are going to look at only two major response mechanisms aside the other minor ones. So the two major responses to stimuli are what we call phototropism and geotropism, and that is what you have on your screen. So over here you see the plant bending towards light in different direction. If you position the light in a different position, you're able to detect it and bend towards it. Over here we see plants positioned horizontally is bending vertically in response to their natural orientation to the position of the sun. Here plants are responding. We see a plant, mimosa plant, responding to touch. It doesn't have eyes or ears. They don't have our type of skin, but they're able to know when it's touched, and then they respond to it. We see seeds growing anytime there is germination. Seed germination occurs in two ways. We have the hypocotyl or the epicotyl. The shoot or the stem grows upwards naturally, producing the leaves and the branches. The roots will always grow downwards. It doesn't matter how you position the potted plant. Plants know how to grow in response to various stimuli within the environment. And this is what we call plant response to the environment. Now, one thing we need to know is that for plants to respond to its environment, it depends on the use of special chemicals or chemicals called hormones. These hormones in plants, they are also called plant growth regulators. Regulator here refers to control. Regulation can deals with bringing things under control because they can be high, they can also be low. Now, to this end, plants make use of the following hormones in controlling or regulating their growth. But then, one thing we need to know is that we human beings, we have hormones in us and animals also. Plants also do have it in a different way. They use these hormones to promote growth by stimulating plant cells to divide. Growth is made possible by the process of mitosis. So that is what plants use their hormones for? To stimulate plant cells to divide. Stimulate here means to cause. And secondly, apart from division, plants also use their hormones to cause their cells to enlarge. And that is the second thing. They don't only cause their cells to enlarge, they also stimulate growth by causing their cells to elongate. And this is very important. Now, lastly, plants also use their hormones to stop growing. So it reaches a point the plant will no longer grow again. It suddenly stops growing and is happening in response to changes within the environment. Now, in this slide, we are going to look at plant hormones, and then let us look at the general functions of the following hormones. There are a number of hormones you'll be looking at, but then in this particular curriculum, we are looking at only 3. So we have the following: gibberellins, we have abscisic acid, and then we have auxins. What are we supposed to know? We are supposed to know their general functions. So there are 3 hormones under study in this topic: gibberellins, abscisic acid, and then we have auxins. Let's start with the functions of gibberellins. What are the functions of gibberellins? They initiate the germination of seeds. So that is what they do. Secondly, they also stimulate development of flowers. And then lastly, they stimulate sprouting of buds. So primarily, those are the 3 functions of gibberellins. In addition to it, there are some other functions we need to look at. We also have the following here: the functions of abscisic acid. What are the functions of abscisic acid? 1. It inhibits growth of apical buds. Apical here refers to the tip of the plant. The top, the very top, is called the apex. And abscisic acid inhibits growth of apical buds. More also, it promotes seed dormancy, seed inactivity. Seed dormancy here means the seed will not germinate, and it is the responsibility of abscisic acid to ensure that seed dormancy allows the seeds to survive or to last for years. For example, we have rice seeds, bean seeds, we have corn seeds. Those seeds can remain there in a container for days under the right condition without germination, and it's due to the influence of abscisic acid. Now let's go on to auxins, which is a primary hormone in plants we are going to study thoroughly. And what are the main functions? Auxin hormones, or the hormones auxins, promotes apical dominance. That is 1. Secondly, they regulate plant growth in 2 ways: through phototropism and geotropism. These 2 processes are controlled only by auxins. Then the same hormone stimulates cell division or stimulates mitosis. In addition to that, auxins promote the formation of adventitious roots in roots, most especially in cuttings like sugarcane. So when you put a sugarcane in the soil for it to grow, by developing adventitious roots, you need auxins to make that possible. Auxins also stimulates the development of flowers and fruits. And lastly, abscission of leaves, meaning cutting of leaves and its subsequent falling to the ground, including ripe fruits. They are all stimulated by auxins. Without auxins, leaves won't fall on the trees. And when fruits become ripened, or when they ripe, they will not fall. Hence, auxin cause leaves and fruits to fall off to the ground. Because auxin forms the main hormone under study in this topic, um, I will therefore explore the functions once more. So here are the main functions once again of auxins. Here we have to know the various facts about it. If you take a whole plant like this, where will you find auxins in it? Where are they produced? Auxins are produced in the growing tips of stems. So if you take this stem, the tip is here at the very top. That is where you find auxins being produced. So auxins are produced in two places within the plant, in the growing tip of the stem and also the roots and in the apical buds. So the apical buds will also have to be at the tip of the stem. And then they are also produced in roots. So you find auxins at those two locations. They are the main hormones that cause plants to grow. So for plants to grow, yes, there are other hormones, but auxins are the main hormones responsible for plant growth. Second, lastly, they stimulate or can prevent, into bracket, inhibit growth. So we know auxins are supposed to stimulate growth. They are supposed to cause plant to grow. But the same thing that will cause the plant to grow can stop it or prevent it from growing under certain conditions. Now, this will take us to um, apical dominance. What we need to know is that auxins promote apical dominance. Like you are seeing on your screen, you can see the plant is growing normally, but you discover that the branches at the lower part of the stem, they are larger in size than the branches at the top. Where is growth starting from? Where is growth initiated? Or where is growth occurring in this plant? Every part of it is growing all right, but then growth starts at the tip. The plant first grows the branches starting from the tip, and then slowly, as the as the tree or the plant grows taller, the initial branches will actually continue to grow longer and larger, and the new ones will continue growing on top of it. This is what is called apical dominance. This part of the tree here, of this plant, is what is called the apex. Another word for apex is the word tip. So you see, all the leaves and the branches are smaller, but then those at the bottom are larger. And it creates the shape of a triangle with a tip called the apex. This type of growth is called apical dominance. What then is apical dominance? It is a prevention or inhibition. Another word for prevention is the word inhibition. So apical dominance is the prevention or inhibition of the growth of the branches closer to the tip of the stem due to the production of auxins at the tip of the stem. Auxin is supposed to promote growth. So we have the branches and the leaves at the tip. At that same location, auxins are being produced. What is the auxin doing? The auxin being produced at the tip is actually preventing the growth of the branches. It is preventing the branches from growing larger and longer, and we need to know why. So what is happening is that this causes branches closer to the lower part of the stem to grow faster, because auxin is a liquid. It is produced at the tip, but then it flows down under gravity along the stem down to the lower part. This is the lower part. In the shoot, or in this part of the plant, high amount of auxins stimulate growth, or the higher the amount of auxin, the faster the growth of the branches. Because the auxin is produced here at the tip and they don't remain there, but they float down, the amount of auxin here remains very low, and the amount of auxin here remains very high. So we have low auxin, and then we have high auxin. Low auxin will cause the branches closer to the lower part of the stem to grow faster and larger than the branches closer to the tip. So the branches at the tip, they grow slower and smaller in size. But then because of high auxin level here, the amount of auxin at the bottom, they appear to be high, causing the plant to grow faster. Then we look at the effect of apical dominance. So what is happening here is that the growth of the lateral branches closer to the tip of the stem is inhibited by the auxin. Now, this will cause the lateral branches closer to the tip of the stem, okay, to appear shorter than the lateral branches lower than the stem. So that is what I was showing here. There is a tip, what is called the apex. The amount of auxin here is lower than the amount of auxin here, because the auxin flows like liquid. It flows down under gravity. More auxin will promote more growth. Because the auxin is very low, the growth level is also low. And because the amount of auxin is high here, the growth level here is also high. This results in the growth of the stem being wider at the bottom. So if you take this plant, for example, the stem is very large here, but if you check the tip, the stem is smaller. It's because of the influence of auxin. The amount of auxin here is lower than the amount of auxin at the bottom. The auxin at the bottom is higher because the auxin is produced here at the tip, but it doesn't stay there. It doesn't remain there. It flows down. Gravity will pull the auxin down to the lower part. Hence, they will accumulate here. The auxins will gather here in large quantity. The higher the amount of auxin, the higher the growth. And then the lower the amount of auxin, the lower the growth. It explains why the growth of the stem is wider at the bottom, but narrower at the top. Now, if auxins are produced at the tip of all plants, then we have to explain what will happen when the tip of the stem of the plant is removed. What happens when the tip of the stem of the plant is removed? Just like this one, you can see that is the apical bud. Now you take a knife and you cut it away. So you have cut off the tip. Now there's no tip. We understand auxins are produced from the tip. Auxin will cause the plant to grow taller, and you have cut the tip off. By cutting the tip, it means the apical bud has been removed. When the bud is removed, that means there will be no auxin. Similar to this picture here, you can see we have the plant here, and what do we have here? We have the tip, and for as long as the tip is there, the plant will grow taller. But then in this particular frame, we have cut off, we have removed the the tip of the plant. It has been removed. And once you remove the tip of the plant, just look at how the plant is growing. Now we have more branches and more leaves. But over here, because the tip is still there, there are fewer branches and there are fewer leaves. So let's find out what happens when you cut the tip of the stem. So this is the answer. Once the tip of the stem is removed, auxins are removed because auxins are produced by the tip of the stem. So once you cut the tip of the stem, once the tip of the stem is removed, auxins are also automatically removed. And so what happens? And so lateral branches begin to grow. There will be a lot of branches, a lot of leaves, and the plant will grow shorter because there is no tip. Now, this will lead us into the fruit industry in agriculture. What becomes the importance of removing the tip of a plant stem? So here are the answers, and it explains the importance of removing the tip of the plant stem. When you do so, plants are kept short with more lateral branches. 2, it results in more fruit being produced. And lastly, the fruits will now be closer to the ground and therefore they will be easier to pick. So cutting the tip of a stem is very important in the fruit industry for those 3 reasons, and you have to know them for examination purposes. Then we go on to the following. So here is a slide activity based on the presentation we have done so far. The first question is asking, what are auxins? That is one. What are auxins? You have to know we have been looking at plant hormones so far. So what are auxins? You can use 1 minute to answer it. And then we go on to the next question. State 3 functions of auxins. That will demand that you refer to your notes, or you go to the DBE textbook, page 238, or you just check your notes, the handouts. And then the third question, what is apical dominance, or define apical dominance? It can be 2 marks or 3 marks or 4 marks because you have to provide the full details. Now, describe what will happen if the tip of a plant shoot is removed. When you cut off the top of a tree, the tree will no longer grow taller. It will start producing more branches and more leaves and more fruits. And then, lastly, state 3 industrial application of apical dominance. So here are the answers. You can read it yourself and take note of them. You can also pause the video and then you can monitor the answers and know them very well. And go to your notes or your handouts for question 2 answers. Now, we will now move on to the control of weeds using plant hormones. We normally control weeds in our garden, backyard garden, or on our farms using weedicides. Most of the time, these weedicides are toxic to the environment. And so there is an environmentally friendly way or a safe way of controlling weeds on our garden and farms without damaging the environment. So let's look at the control of weeds. In this case, we're going to use hormones instead of weedicides, or maybe using insecticides or herbicides for any other purposes. So we have to know herbicides are special chemicals used for killing weeds or plants. Herbicides can be sprayed over crops or gardens to kill unwanted weeds, that is, unwanted plants on our backyard garden. However, we have to know that these chemicals, they are often toxic to animals and humans and some plants. So there's an alternative to these toxic chemicals, and those the alternatives are plant hormones. Over here, the idea in using plant hormones is that in a simple way, different plant species are sensitive to different levels of certain hormones, and so weed killing can be selective, can be a selective process. Then we go on to plant defense mechanism and its importance. So let's look at it here. I think the mouse keeps on dancing, it's difficult to control it. So plants represent the basis of food chain as they are the primary producers. So we all depend on plants, both animals, humans, herbivore, and mostly omnivores. Um, Therefore, they are therefore considered as primary producers. It means that plants are always under pressure. They are constantly under attacks from herbivores, from insects, and from pathogens. So what would the plant do? Because if they are constantly being eaten, that means they are under attack. They feel that they are under attack. To us, we are trying to satisfy our hunger, but then to the plants, they feel threatened. So they try to fight back. They try to limit the attack by using various defense mechanisms. So we need to look at the role of these defense mechanisms in plants and how they help to ensure the survival of plants themselves. So we are going to look at some of them. Plants defend themselves using chemicals. In this curriculum, there are two defense mechanisms we are going to study. We have chemicals, and then we have thorns. We have to take note of them. They are both used um, to prevent attacks from the environment with regards to different organisms. All right, so let's look at chemical defenses. Uh, this involves the production of special chemical compounds that are poisonous to the herbivores and also to the insects. And they are also able to protect the plant against pathogens. What are the pathogens? The pathogens are viruses, bacteria, fungi. It can also be protists. Okay, you can't kill a bacteria with thorns. Thorns are larger in size. Bacteria, they are microscopic. So if you want to control the growth of bacteria, you don't need thorns of plants. You need chemicals. So the plants, they don't produce thorns to protect themselves against viruses, bacteria, and fungi. They produce chemicals. Moreover, um, these chemical compounds, there are several of them. We have salicylic acid and tannins. They can affect the feeding habits of herbivores, insects, and pathogens. They can also control the growth of these organisms. They can actually kill them, stop them from growing, or make them infertile so that they can no longer reproduce. So if a herbivore feeds on a certain plant, and as that plant releases this chemical into its leaves, and the herbivore or the insects or the pathogen consumes it, that chemical can prevent that organism from reproducing. It is more or less like it sterilizes that organism so that it can no longer give birth. And sometimes it even kills them. They are poisonous, so they die. And once they die, the number of attacks on the plant reduces so that the plant too can reproduce. The second defense mechanism is actually mechanical. It involves the use of thorns, and it is a vital evolutionary advantage. And it deals with the external part of the plant, developing external structures. So what happens is that thorns make it difficult for herbivores to eat the plant, even for humans to disturb the plant. The thorns can actually do that. And we have these structures that are involved in defense mechanism. We know that thorns cannot protect the plant against pathogens. Thorns cannot protect the plant against viruses, bacteria, and fungi because thorns are larger in size, and these organisms are microscopic. So if you want to control the growth of bacteria, you need chemicals, but not thorns. All right, so this marks the end of part 1, where we looked at plant hormones and their functions, apical dominance, and then plant defense mechanism. Now, in the next segment, we are going to look at plant growth regulation in plants, or plant growth regulation, what we call tropism. Now, we need to know plants have the capability of responding to the environment in various ways. When there are changes in the environment, the plant will respond. The plant won't respond if there are no changes. So, what are the growth regulation mechanism? That is tropism. What is tropism? Tropism refers to a response to an external stimulus, which can be light, it can be gravity, or it can be touch. So we are looking at tropism, which is a response to external stimulus. Know the definition. When the movement of a plant is away from a stimulus, let's say if the plant moves away from light, we say tropism is negative. If plant move away from water, we say that tropism is negative. So tropism can be negative. It can also be positive. It is positive when the plant moves towards the stimulus. The stimulus can be light, it can be gravity, it can be water. But in this curriculum, we are looking at two stimuli, that is gravity and light. So if the plant moves towards light, that is a positive tropism. We're going to know the name of that tropism. If plant move away from light, it is a negative phototropism. So plant can respond to any stimulus, but then we are going to focus on only two, and they are geotropism and phototropism. Now we need to know, for geotropism and phototropism to occur, auxins are required. And auxins are the main hormones. They are the main hormones involved in geotropism and phototropism. I will start with phototropism, then we go on to geotropism. So there's a picture here, and you can see there's a box. We have a box. Okay. Now this box encloses the plant. The plant is potted, and there is an opening here to allow light to pass through, to shine through. For as long as the opening is above the plant, is on top, and the light is coming from the top, you can see the plant grows naturally vertical towards the light source. What if we close or we seal this part, and then we create an opening on the side, and then we put the light on the side, and that is for this particular screen. Once you put the light source here and the top is covered, strangely, after some days, you will notice that the plant is bending towards the light, as if it has eyes to see. Plants don't have eyes, so how are they able to know where the light is? If we change the position of the opening to this side again, and you put the light here, the plant will bend in that direction. This is what is called phototropism. Phototropism is the growth of parts of a plant towards a light stimulus. So phototropism, the word photo means light, similar to photosynthesis, the word photosynthesis, which involves light. So phototropism is a movement of parts of a plant towards a light stimulus. Then, when the stem of a plant is exposed to unilateral light, the word uni means one light source or light from one side. Lateral means side. So when you expose plant to light coming from one side, so over here the light is coming from one side. This is a side of the box, this one side. The plant will grow vertical. But when the light is coming from the side, what is going to happen here? It states that when the stem of a plant is exposed to unilateral light, the stem will automatically bend towards that light. So this is the top. Once we position, we create an opening. Once we close here, we create an opening on the side. You see the plant is bending towards the light. And then over here, we have a depiction of the process of phototropism. We have shoot A. So we have to pay attention to the direction of the light stimulus. This is the sun. The sun is always above the plant. For as long as the sun is there, the plant will grow towards it. In fact, the sun spends roughly 6 hours up the horizon in the sky. It explains why majority of the plants do grow upwards. So pay attention and know that the chemical hormone responsible for phototropism and geotropism is the hormone auxin. And auxins are produced at the tip. So that's the tip. And that is where the auxins are produced, but they don't remain at the tip, they flow down. And for as long as the sun is on top, you can see the plant is growing vertically upwards. So that will take us to the effect of light on auxins. What happens to the auxins when it is exposed to sunlight? So you have to know auxins are produced at the tip of the stem or the shoot. So this is the shoot or the stem. What will happen to the auxins? The auxins will move. The word move is important. They move like human beings will move. They can sense light and they don't like it because light will destroy it. Auxins are destroyed by light. So once they sense that there is light, they move downwards and they move evenly. Evenly means uniformly. They don't concentrate on themselves on one side. They flow downwards uniformly in equal direction. This distribution brings about equal growth on all sides of the stem. So that is what we have here. The auxins are produced here, they are exposed to the sun. The sun will destroy, so they flow down, they move down to where there is less sunlight so that they can survive and they can stimulate growth. Because if they're exposed, they're going to die. They're going to be destroyed. So once the auxins flow down, what happens? You have to know auxins stimulate growth. More auxins means more growth. So as the auxins flow down, there will be more auxins here than at the tip. And they will keep on moving down because of the sunlight. And as they flow down, where they will find themselves in large quantity, they will cause that part to grow larger and longer. Then we go on to what will happen when the sun moves to one side in the sky, like you are seeing on the screen. So here we have the stem, but then the sun is no more on top. The sun is now on the side. The light is coming from one side. It will mean that one side here is facing the sun, the other side is not facing the sun. This further means that one side is receiving more sunlight than the other side. The side facing the sun is the illuminated side. It is the light side or the bright side. The side not facing the sun is the dark side. And again, what happened? When auxins are exposed to light from one direction. So this is what will happen. The auxin concentration will be high on the shaded side. This is the shaded side, the dark side. And the reason is because light destroys auxins. Okay, so the light will destroy the auxins. This side facing the sun, you can see we don't have those dot thing there. The dot represent the auxins. The same shoot, right? One side has a lot of auxin, the other side doesn't have it because the auxins are destroyed, or the auxins, they move away from the light source. So the arrow is showing you the direction the auxins are taking. The auxins move away from the sunlight because the sunlight destroys it. So what's going to happen? Now, there will be more auxins here than here. What does auxins do for the stem? More auxins in the stem will cause the plant to grow faster. It will cause the plant to grow larger and longer. Less auxin or no auxin on one side or in the stem will reduce growth or will inhibit growth. So what will happen? More growth occurs on the dark side. This is the dark side. The side which is not facing the sun. That side will have more auxins, hence more growth occurs there. And the reason is because auxins stimulate growth on the dark side. So the dark side will grow faster because of more auxins occurring there. More auxins in the stem causes plant to grow faster. It promotes growth. So this is what is happening. If you look at it here, we started here, now this is the end. The plant was vertical. Now it's beginning to bend towards the sun because the sun was illuminating one side, which destroyed and caused all the auxins to move into the dark side. The dark side will have more auxins than the bright side. More auxins in the dark side of the stem will stimulate growth by causing the cell to become larger and to elongate. The side with no auxin, which is the illuminated side or the light side facing the sun, will have no auxin. No auxin means less growth. So if you check the cells, these are the cells. You see those rectangular, they're roughly drawn rectangular structure there. You can see they look smaller, but then if you compare it to those here, they look relatively larger. They are larger because of the effect of auxin. Now, let's look at the shoot tip. This is the tip of the stem or the tip of the shoot. And we can see the movement of auxin. Light is coming from one side. Why is the plant or the stem bending this way? It is bending facing the light source. It is bending because the auxins on this side, you can see there are no dots here because the dots represent the auxins. The auxins are in the side of the shoot facing the sun. They were destroyed because light causes destruction of auxins. And it will therefore cause the auxins to move away from the light. So the auxin will start moving. You can see the arrow showing you the movement. And then it will increase its concentration on this side. That means there will be more auxins on this side. More auxins will cause the stem to grow faster on the dark side. The dark side is the side not facing the light. It is the light side, illuminated side, and is the dark side. In the case of seedling, in the shoot tip, more auxin causes more growth or faster stem to grow. Less auxin or no auxin, it prevents growth. Now let's look at the following. Why are stems positively phototrophic? Why are stems positively phototropic? The answer is because they bend towards the light. So if they bend towards light, we say they are positively phototropic. Then we go on to explore the following. What are the advantages of stems being phototropic? Why should they even be phototropic? What are the advantages of stems being phototropic? It allows a favorable position for leaves to receive sunlight, which is needed for photosynthesis. And then it also allows easy pollination of flowers. And then lastly, it also allows easier seed dispersal. Dispersal means to scatter seeds. So that is the reason why stems are always positively phototropic, meaning they will always bend towards light. And they are doing so for those reasons on your screen. So here's a simple example of phototropism in nature. This is a real natural process, a potted plant, and as the seedlings start growing, and if you place the light source, if you create an opening on the side, this is a unilateral light source. This is what is called a unilateral light source. Uni means one side. If you put the light here, you see the plant bending naturally towards light, as if they can see the light. These things are happening because of the effect of auxins. The auxins on the side facing this light are destroyed, and the auxins on the side facing away from the light source, they are not destroyed. Hence, more auxins are on the dark side than on the illuminated side. It will cause the plant to bend towards light. You can actually see the plant closer to the light source. They are growing faster than those that are further away from the light source. It's because these plants in this pot, they don't receive the same amount of light. Those closer to the light source, they receive more light than those further away from the light source. And that is why you can see them responding differently to the light source. Now, we need to know the following. Why are stems positively phototropic? It's because they bend towards light. Then we go on to the second one. Why are roots negatively phototropic? Roots are negatively phototropic because there is no light in the soil and roots are in the soil. And roots, they always move away from light source because they don't need it. They are sensitive to gravity. And that is why they are negatively phototropic. Now, the next aspect of tropism will be geotropism. What is geotropism? Geotropism is a movement of roots of plants to gravity. So that's the root of a plant here. If you position it horizontally, it will grow vertically downwards automatically. So here is the thing. When a pot plant is placed on its side, that is horizontally, and left to grow in a dark environment without any light, the stem will grow upwards and then the roots will grow downwards. And then in this case, this is occurring in response to gravity. And this mechanism is called geotropism. So that is what you have here. We place the stem horizontally, but then after some days, it bends downwards. Let's look at the role of auxins in geotropism. In this, we are going to ask ourselves the following. We want to find out what happens when the potted plant is vertically upright. If you position the plant upright like you are seeing here, what's going to happen? So when the pot is vertical, auxins is produced at the tip of the root. So if you look at the root, you can see the auxins. Those are the black spots you are seeing there. You can see these rectangular structures like bricks. We call them cells. They are the cells of the root. So once the plant is positioned this way vertically, the auxin is produced at the tip of the roots, and the auxins moves downwards equally or evenly in every direction. So we don't have auxins more on one side or the other. Then what will happen is that the even or the uniform or equal distribution brings about equal growth on all sides of the root. So we have equal amount of auxins in every part of the stem, promoting equal growth. As a result, the root grows downwards. As a result, the root grows downwards. Now, let us look at this also. We are trying to explain why roots grow downwards when the pot of plant is placed vertically. So explain this a question to you. Explain why roots grow downwards when the pot of plant is placed vertically. So why is the root growing down? This is the root. Why will it grow downwards? What will be the answer? The answer is because oxygen is produced at the tip of the roots and then it moves upwards evenly. So the oxygens are produced here and they will start flowing upwards uniformly. The uniform distribution brings about equal growth on all sides of the root, and hence it will cause the root to grow downwards. So look at another alternative. Let's look at the role of auxins in geotropism. So over here we have the root, and you can see here are the cells, these rectangular brick structures. Those are the cells. Take note of their sizes. Okay, and these blue spots are the auxins. Once the root is horizontal this way, you know, auxins are liquid like water. They'll flow under gravity, so they flow downwards. So you can see this side and this side, the auxin quantities are not the same. There are more auxins on this side than on this side. Then suddenly the roots start bending. So let's see what happens. When the plant is placed horizontally, that is when you place the plant horizontally, what's going to happen? The oxygen concentration will be higher on the lower side. Here is the lower side because the oxygens are pulled down by gravity. So gravity is bringing the oxygens down because you have placed it horizontally. This will cause more growth on the upper side of the root. So this is the root. It has two sides, the upper side and the lower side. Now, auxins behave differently in the stem and then in the root. In the stem, more auxin will promote more growth, but then in the root, more auxin will inhibit growth. So see what is happening here. You see here, there are no auxins, right? Check the cells. You see the cells, the rectangular structure, they look so small and they are equal here. But then, due to the low amount of auxin, check the size of the cell, they are becoming larger. Because in the root, the lower the amount of auxin, the higher the growth. And plants grow by elongation of cells and enlargement. So you can see the cells are becoming longer on the upper side. More growth occurs on the upper side of the stem because auxins on the lower side inhibit growth. What's going to happen? There are more auxins here, but the root cells are not growing. Check the size. They are even becoming smaller. But then here there are fewer auxins, and guess what? They are becoming larger because the lower the amount of auxins in the roots, the higher the growth. So explain why the root of plants bends horizontally downwards or towards the ground when placed horizontally. So the answer is because when you place it horizontally, the auxin concentration will be high on the lower side of the root because auxin is pulled down by gravity. So the auxins go down because of gravity. The second answer is because more growth occur on the upper side of the root because auxins on the lower side, they inhibit growth. So there are more auxins here. More auxins here means less growth. Few auxins here or low auxins here or less auxins here means more growth. That is the thing about the effect of auxins in root and stem. They behave in a different way. In the root, more auxins will prevent growth. In the stem, more auxins will promote growth. Once you get that, you will be able to know why the less or the few auxins here cause the cells to elongate, but more auxins here did not cause the cells to elongate. It's because of the effect of auxins in the root. High amount of auxins in the root will prevent growth. High amount of auxins in the stem will promote growth. So if you look carefully, that is what is happening. You can see the black dots, they increase in level on the lower side, and then it causes the cells to remain smaller. But if you check the top, you can see the rectangle stretches, they become longer, telling you that auxins flow down under gravity, and it actually inhibits or stops growth of cells. So in the root tip, take note of the principle. In the root tip, more auxin inhibits growth of cells. That is when you are dealing with the root. But in the stem, more auxins promotes growth. So that's the two differences. But then, still in the root, less auxin, what does it do? It increases growth of cells. Now let's look at geotropism in germinating seed. If we take a germinating seed, that's a seed, we have auxins being produced in the young root and in the young shoot, which will form the stem and the branches. What we need to know is that when the emerging young roots start to grow downwards, so this is a young root, it is emerging, it is coming out. Emerge means to come out. It is coming out of the seed. The emerging young root starts to grow downwards, and it is growing downwards in response to gravity. It knows where to grow. And then, no matter which way the seeds lands on the ground, the roots will always grow downwards. So that is what it's telling you. No matter how you position the seed, if you throw it to the ground, if you throw it anywhere, anyhow, the young shoot will definitely grow downwards. So it continues to say the shoot will always grow upwards towards light. So there are two parts. This will now grow to become the root. This will now grow to become the stem and the branches. They know where to go. The young shoot knows that naturally it must grow upwards into the sky. And then the root, it knows where to grow. It will always grow downwards into the soil. The shoot is growing in response to light, and then the root is growing in response to gravity. So we have a plant here. Let us look at some basic facts about auxin. Auxins have mass. It means they have weight, they have density, and therefore they are pulled down by gravity. Because of that, the shoot and the root both have high concentration of auxins on the lower side. This is the shoot. Because auxins are liquid and they have mass, they always flow downwards. Hence, there are more auxins. This is the lower part of the stem. This is the upper part of the stem. So there are more auxins here than here. In the root too, this is the upper part of the root. This is the lower part of the root. Because auxins have mass, they flow under gravity downwards. Hence, there are more auxins here and there are more auxins here. And it's due to the force of gravity. However, the effect of high concentration of auxins on young roots and shoots is different. So over here in the stem, high amount of auxins affects it differently from the stem. In other words, to put it right, this is the lower part of the stem, this is the upper part. There are more auxins in the lower part. This is the lower part of the root. There are more auxins here. But then their impact on the plants, they differ. Let's look at this. In the shoot, The shoot refers to stem tip of the plant and then the lower part of the stem. The shoot, they are negatively geotropic. In other words, the shoot, they move away or they bend upwards against gravity. And the reason is this, is because in the shoot, high oxygen concentration promotes cell elongation on the lower side. So what's going to happen is that the shoot will therefore bend upwards because oxygen functions differently in shoots and then in the root. Then, what about the roots? The roots are positively geotropic. They bend towards gravity. Why do they bend towards gravity? They bend towards gravity because in the young roots, the lower part has high oxygen concentration than the upper part. So this is the lower part, this is the upper part. Over here, the lower part has high oxygen concentration than the upper part. So what's going to happen? The lower part with more oxygen is inhibited and it does not grow. So more oxygen in the lower part, it prevents the cells from growing. And then it goes on to say, the reason is because oxygen flows downwards to the lower side if the root is horizontal. The upper part with no oxygen is going to grow faster. So this upper part is growing faster. Check the rectangular cells here and compare to the one lower here. The lower ones are smaller. You can see these ones are very long. And the oxygen concentration is low. Oxygen concentration is high. Because oxygen behave differently in the roots and also in the stem. In the roots, high amount of oxygen will inhibit growth. Rather, low amount of oxygen is needed for roots to grow. So the root then grows downwards towards gravity. Roots are then able to grow deep into the soil where the root hairs will absorb water and minerals. So, question. Describe how the roots of plant grow deep into the soil. So let's do it. Here it goes by saying, in the young roots, the lower part has high oxygen concentration than the upper part. The lower part with more auxins is inhibited and does not grow faster. And the reason is because oxygen flows downwards to the lower side if the root is horizontal. The upper part with no auxins grows faster. The root then grows downwards towards gravity. Roots are then able to grow deep into the soil where the root hairs will absorb water and minerals. So that is the root tip, and you can see the oxygen level are higher on the lower side than the upper side. This is the upper, the top side. Why is that the case? Because oxygens flow down under gravity. And in the roots, high amount of oxygen will inhibit growth. So you can see the oxygen level is higher on the lower side, but the cells are smaller. Okay. And then if you look here, the oxygen levels is quite low, but then check the cells. They are large and they are long because low amount of oxygen will actually promote growth. High amount of oxygen will inhibit growth. This is what you need to know. In the stem of a plant, more oxygen increases growth. That is a principle you need to know. Once you catch this principle, phototropism and geotropism becomes easier to understand and to explain, because the same hormone auxin behaves differently in both parts of the same plant. Whilst in the root tip, less auxin increases growth. So those are the principles you need to know. You need to know it, and you need to know it real quick. You can pause the video of the previous screen and monitor it. Check your notes also and master. So we have an experiment here trying to check the effect of light on auxin and its movement with regards to plant growth. So in the first instance over here, we're going to use what is called a permeable material. We're going to use permeable material. What is a permeable material? You can see there are three experiments here. We have the control permeable barrier, and then we have the impermeable barrier. So what is a permeable barrier of material? A permeable material allows substances such as molecules to pass through. Impermeable does the opposite. It does not allow substances to pass through. Auxins are produced from the tip of the stem or the shoot. So auxins are produced at the tip here, as you are seeing. That's where the experiment is happening. So in the first instance, they did cut off the tip, and then guess what? It did not grow. How do we know? If you check the height, if you take the measurement of the height, you can see there's no growth because there is no auxin, no growth here. Over here, they did not cut away the tip. They did cut the tip, but then they placed a material on top of the exposed surface, and then they placed the tip on top, like you are seeing here. This material is said to be permeable. Permeable means it will allow substances to pass through. So the auxins are produced here, and the auxins are able to penetrate through the permeable barrier and is able to pass through. This material is made up of agar or gelatin blob and is permeable. After some hours, growth occurred and the shoot was burning towards light because the auxins produced from the tip were able to pass through the permeable barrier. Then they did another experiment. They did cut off the tip, but they did not throw it away. Then they placed an impermeable barrier on top. That impermeable barrier was made up of cocoa butter. Impermeable means this material, this cocoa butter, will not allow the auxin or substances to pass through, either from below or from above. So once you place the cocoa butter there, the auxins were, yes, produced from here, but then after some hours, there was no growth. The plant did not bend. Why didn't the plant bend? It's because auxins from the tip couldn't pass through the cocoa butter, hence there was no growth. Another material was used. The cocoa butter was replaced with another material called the mica or the mica sheet. This material too was impermeable. It was placed there. After some hours, the plant did not grow. There was no growth. It did not bend. And the reason is because auxins are produced from the tip of the stem or shoot. And over here, only agar is permeable in terms of its material. Agar is a permeable material that can be used to simulate or demonstrate the movement of auxins through plant tissue. So we split this into three sections, and then we try to explore what's going on. They were all exposed to the same light. There was no growth because the auxin couldn't pass through there was no auxin to cause growth actually. Here, growth occurred because auxin from the tip was able to pass through the permeable material, which is the agar. And in these two experiments, using cocoa butter and mica sheet, because the auxin could not pass down through the cocoa butter, the plant could not grow in the direction of the sun because they have to bend. They grow by bending. And it goes on to show and to prove that auxins are produced from the tip. Now, there's another way of proving geotropism or phototropism. In this particular experiment, yes, this is what they did. They placed two plants, A and B, inside a box, and only one side was illuminated to provide a unilateral light source. And then we have plant B in the same box and the same light source from the same direction. The same type of plant was used to ensure validity. The same size of box was used to ensure validity. The same light source and intensity was used to ensure validity. The same water was used to water the plants to ensure validity. Everything was the same for validity's sake. However, in box B, in plant B, it was placed on a clinostat. A clinostat is a device that is able to rotate. So instead of keeping the plant stationary like A, where only one side will receive light and the other side will be dark, will be in the dark side. In plant B, the plant was rotating. So you won't have one side facing the light. All the sides are receiving light. So guess what? The plant grew vertically upwards, even though the light was coming from one direction. But here, because the plant was not rotating but was stationary, it did bend towards light. So we need to explain. This method is one of the wonderful ways of demonstrating phototropism, which is the growth response of plant towards light. And here, a clinostat is being used. A clinostat is a device that rotates plants in a way that simulates microgravity. This allows you to study the effects of light on plant growth without the influence of gravity. Now, what happened? Let's look at the explanation. So, in this experiment, the clinostat allows you to isolate the effect of light on the plant, on plant growth without the influence of gravity. So here, gravity will not play any role. The plant is not bending because of gravity. In seedling A, the seedlings respond to the light by growing towards it. Why did the seedling grow towards the light? You have to describe what you are seeing here. You can see the seedling was growing or bending towards the light. Over here, the seedling did not bend towards the light, though the light was coming from one direction and it was rotating. And the reason why A bent towards light was due to the auxin distribution in the stem. So auxin promotes cell elongation. You have to explain it on the side of the stem away from the light, causing the stem to bend towards light. So the part facing light experience low amount of growth because the auxins on the illuminated side were destroyed. Only the light on the dark side, only the auxins on the light side caused the plant to grow. So there was growth on the light side, but then there was no growth on the dark there was growth on the dark side, but there was no growth on the light side. Hence the plant bent towards light. Then what about B? In B, because the plant was rotating, auxins were uniformly distributed throughout the stem due to its rotation on the clinostat. This eliminates or removes the concentration of auxin on one side of the stem, causing it to grow upwards and not towards the light. So, because the plant was rotating, you won't have one side only facing the light source. As it turns, the other side receives light, and then the auxins, whilst they are about to be destroyed, the plant turns again, and then another side is exposed. So you don't get all the auxins being destroyed because you're not receiving equal amount of light at the same time on either side, and thus the plant grew upwards. The same experiment, the same device can be used to prove why seedlings um, in the case of their roots, why they grow downwards. So here we have two devices. The aim is to show geotropism in P radicals or radicels, and this is an experimental device to use. We are still using a clinostat. We have to know geotropism is the growth response of plant towards gravity, and a clinostat is a perfect tool to demonstrate. So a clinostat is a device that rotates plants in a way that simulates microgravity. It allows you to study the effects of auxins on the plant root growth without the influence of gravity. So we're going to see if the root will grow downwards in response to gravity, or it will grow horizontally if we rotate it. So there are two plants here, same plants, same quantity for validity's sake, and one potted plant is placed on a clinostat. So the clinostat will be rotating. It will cause the plant to rotate. This one, the plant won't rotate. So we want to see whether the seedlings will grow horizontally or downwards or upwards. So this experiment was left there for 3 days. For this one, for this experiment, it kept on rotating for 3 days. This one did not rotate for 3 days. Conditions were the same. Temperature was the same. The species of plants were all the same. And the aim is to ensure validity. So after 3 days, it was discovered that the roots in the rotating pot of plant, it grew horizontally like you are seeing on your screen. But then this pot of plant, because it was not rotating, the roots bent downwards. It grew downwards. So what is the explanation? We have to explain. So on a rotating clinostat, the roots of the pea seedlings grow horizontally due to the elimination. The word elimination here means removal. Due to the removal of gravity's influence. Here is what happened. Let's look at it. With the effect of gravity, in normal conditions, gravity pulls the roots downwards. Like we are seeing in this particular case, gravity pulls everything downwards, causing them to grow vertically into the soil. This is naturally called geotropism. That is, geotropism is happening. Now, what happened when a clinostat was used? So in this plant, everything went natural. The roots went downwards due to gravity. And we call it geotropism. Now, what about this experiment where the pot of plant was rotating on a clinostat? Let's look at the clinostat effect. On a rotating clinostat, the seedlings experience a simulated gravity environment, microgravity environment. The constant rotation averages out the gravitational force, effectively cancelling it out. Because the pot of plant was rotating, gravity could not influence the roots to grow downwards. That's what happened. So what happens? There was no downward pull. So you can see this in this particular plant, there is no downward pull. But here there is a downward pull because gravity influenced this experiment. Gravity could not influence this because it was rotating. And there was no downward pull because without gravity's downward pull, the roots no longer have a preferred direction to grow. They began to grow in a random horizontal direction, following the rotation of the clinostats. So that was basically what happened. Now, remember, you have to know roots grow in search of nutrients and water. On a clinostat, the roots spread out horizontally to explore their surroundings. What are they exploring? They are looking for resources. What are those resources? Water and mineral salt. And the reason why they grew horizontally in this case, it was because of the rotational effect of the clinostats. And this rotational effect cancelled out the influence of gravity. Over here, there was no rotation, and gravity had the chance to pull down the roots. So that is the basic explanation. Remember, in the roots, more auxins means less growth. Less auxins means more growth. As we leave it this way without rotation, gravity will pull down the auxins to the lower side, and the upper side will lack auxins. And when there are no auxins in the root, growth is stimulated. Over here, because of the rotation, the auxins could not concentrate itself on any side of the seed of the root. The auxins weren't higher on the lower side or on the upper side. It was uniform. Because of that, um, the root became horizontal, and it grew horizontally in that particular case. All right, so to end it all, answer the following questions. These are stuff we've done so far. Define tropism, phototropism, geotropism, differentiate between negative tropism and positive tropism. State the functions of the following hormones. We have gibberellins and abscisic acid. So you can pause this screen on yours. You can pause the video on your screen or the screen, and then answer the questions. Thank you very much. Refer to your notes for um, various explanations and other um, approaches that you can use. Thank you very much.